Time for Game Time Live, presented by Verizon. Larry, Michael, Brian Tinsman. We're in the Georgia Dome in Atlanta, where at 1 o'clock the Redskins going to take on the Atlanta Falcons. Both these teams are 3-10. And Brian, let's step aside and check out some of the action here on the field as the quarterback's warming up. And today it will be Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, this is the big shot for Kirk Cousins. They've made the move for the remainder of the season. He's going to be their guy, starting quarterback for the last 3 games. And, this is really the most certainty that he's ever had. He had that first start last year in Cleveland that they didn't announce until Saturday night. They made the move on Wednesday. He knows going in that this is his job for the remainder of the season, and we'll see what he has to offer against the Falcons, which are a weaker defense, but then the Giants and the Cowboys, which are 2 prime division matchups.
Here is the RG3 taking a rep at wide receiver for Rex Grossman, who'll be the number 2 quarterback today for the Redskins. And kind of a surreal situation, Brian. Let's be honest. Redskins have lost 5 straight coming off the season they had last year. The season hasn't gone as planned, and obviously a lot of people already have their sights set on 2014. So the focus, to me, is what's important here today. 2 3-10 teams. Which of these 2 teams will have the best focus in a lost season?
Well, you hit the nail right on the head. Both of these teams are going through just surreal experiences this year. This is a Falcons team that has been to the playoffs, every year it seems for the last 5 years. And you've got a Redskins team that was one of the most exciting teams in football last year. Both of them really just, it seems like trying to get through the end of the season at this point and certainly build some momentum going into next year, because these are obviously 2 very talented rosters. Both of them are pretty complete teams from what was very successful last year, so they've got a lot of questions to answer. And this is an intimidating venue. Usually, this has been one of the best home field advantages in football since Matt Ryan arrived, since Mike Smith has been here. But certainly has not had the magic this year. And you're exactly right. It's want to at this point. These are 2 talented teams that both need to come out and show that they actually are still invested in this 2013 season.
Kickoff 1 o'clock, Redskins and Falcons. And the Falcons have had a rocky season. I mean, they're a couple plays away from getting to the Super Bowl last year. They are 3-10. And in some of the statistical areas, in fact, the Redskins' defense statistically better than the Falcons. But the Redskins have given up a lot of points. They're last in the league in terms of points allowed, 32nd in allowing the most points of any defense in the National Football League. Don't forget, tomorrow morning, catch Monday Morning Redskins Roundup, presented by Verizon at 9 a.m. on Redskins.com, the live web show, hosted by Chris Russell and Chris Cooley, the 2 Chris's. I think they're arresting Tony Wiley. I think that's what's happening here. No, just kidding. He's off to the officials meeting. Anyway, the live web show will feature highlights, interviews, and analysis. Ask the host a question by using hashtag Redskins Talk on Twitter. Larry, Michael, Brian Tinsman, the Georgia Dome, and I guess you wonder who's going to have the bigger crowd here today, huh? The Redskins fans are quite prevalent here in Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, if the rally last night was any indication, then this could be a similar situation to what we saw in Tampa Bay in Week 4 last year, where, the Redskins were the team of the South, and that is still very true. We saw a packed house at the Rally Bar last night. I really think that we're not going to see a full house tonight, but I think that you will see an awful lot of burgundy and gold mixed in with the red and black tonight. And I was really impressed with how many people showed up last night. Very enthusiastic crowd for a 3-10 team. Very excited to see the Redskins in town.
Let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons a second. They brought Steven Jackson on board this year. Michael Turner let go, and Steven Jackson's had an up-and-down year. He's been banged up quite a bit, only about 400 yards for him. And their wide receiving core has really taken a hit. Julio Jones out for the year a while back, and Roddy White hasn't had his normal year. Harry Douglas is their leading wide receiver. And, of course, Tony Gonzalez, the veteran, said this would be his last year. I wonder if he's going to go out on such a note. What has gone wrong for them this year?
Well, I mean, injuries are really the key. This has been such a prolific passing attack over the last 5 years with Julio Jones, with Roddy White, with Tony Gonzalez certainly being brought in. But Harry Douglas is a guy that's actually going to be an interesting matchup to watch today. He's been pretty impressive this year. Is about 80 yards away from 1,000 yards on the season, and a guy who was really nothing more than a third wide receiver for the first 3 years of his career has really turned it on this year. It'll be interesting to see if the Redskins put a guy like D'Angelo Hall on Tony Gonzalez to try and shut him down today. He's a guy who gashed the Redskins last year, 123 yards on 13 receptions and a touchdown, or whether they match him up with Harry Douglas, who is a little bit speedier, a little bit more physically matched to a guy like D. Hall. And it'll be interesting to see how they are able to stop Tony Gonzalez, because they don't have a linebacker who can really match up with him in coverage. I would expect to see them put a bigger guy in the secondary, maybe somebody like Brandon Merriweather, to try and shut Gonzo down. But, you know, there are still some, even without Julio Jones and even without a healthy Roddy White, there are still some interesting matchups in the secondary with the Falcons' passing attack today.
All right, thanks to Brian Tinsman from Redskins.com. You can check out his work, does outstanding work on Redskins.com. A couple of reminders, Redskins fans, apply for your Redskins Extra Point MasterCard. Start earning 2 points for every $1 spent at RedskinsTeamStore.com this holiday season. And also, if you think Brian Arakpo will register a stack today, submit your predictions for Redskins Pick and Play. You can win an autographed Rack mini helmet, plus earn points for a chance to win a VIP experience to next year's home opener. Go to Redskins.com, RedskinsGametime.com to sign up today. And we're joined by Chris Russell from ESPN 980. And, Chris, do you have knowledge of the Inactives?
They have not been officially disseminated yet. I'm just checking, and we can get them as soon as they come across. But being down here, I kind of lost track of that, Larry.
Well, one thing that's for certain, we got word yesterday that Jordan Reed, the tight end, is out again. And so, again, a door opens for Fred Davis. Just when you think it's shut for good, Jordan Reed yet to recover from that concussion, and he is out, which means Fred Davis might have a shot.
Yeah, and we did get the inactives. Of course, Robert Griffin III, Bakari Rambo, Chase Minifield, Brandon Jenkins, Darryl Tapp, Josh Laribas, and Jordan Reed, as you just mentioned. And Mike Shanahan on ESPN 980 on Friday had said that he was encouraged by the week of practice that both Fred Davis and Aldrick Robinson had, especially Fred, who you mentioned with Jordan Reed. You know, now that he's had a couple of games and practices with increased reps, Mike feels that against this defense and against this secondary, maybe he can make truly an impact. And certainly Kirk Cousins absolutely needs him, especially on third down and in the red zone.
It's got to be a funny feeling for Robert Griffin III right over here as we see him out here just standing around. And this is a position he is not very used to, is he?
No, and it's obviously been a very difficult week for everybody in this organization, but, you know, probably, you know, a lot more difficult on Robert than quite honestly anybody. You know, he's an extremely proud and you know, competitive young man, as we know. I certainly think he shares in some of the blame. I don't think his play was by any means great this year. He needs to improve, and he knows that. But what he also needs is time, and whether that be on this field or in the offseason. And I asked Mike Shanahan the other day, what is the benefit of getting the work in and improving as a quarterback in the offseason versus during a week? And I said, you know, is it because you don't have to worry about a game plan? And he gave a great answer, how you can concentrate on the little fundamental, the little technique things, the way you drop your elbow, the way your arm slot, all of that different things, the footwork, all of the ways that you can improve as a quarterback when you don't have to worry about, say, preparing for the Atlanta Falcons or whoever the opponent is.
All right, Chris, let's take a look at some of the keys for this game today. Redskins at 3-10, Falcons 3-10. Falcons really give up a lot of yardage on the ground, over 1,700 yards allowed by their defense. The opposition averages 4.6 a carry against Atlanta. Redskins defense obviously last in the league in points allowed. Special teams, just a horrible season for the Redskins special teams. To me, running the ball, I think, obviously, you got a new quarterback in there. Get him comfortable. Give Alfred Morris the ball. One of the keys. You agree?
Oh, absolutely. And Alfred Morris, quite honestly, Larry, has not been the same player since halftime in Philadelphia when Jordan Reed went out, when Darrell Young, of course, went out. Now Darrell Young comes back to the lineup. We just talked about Jordan Reed. So, you know, at least you get the boost there. And I believe remember what we saw in Cleveland last year with Kirk, where they came out running the ball with a lot of stretch runs, and then you work play-action boot off of that. Well, that will work for Kirk, but that should theoretically open up some inside zone, I would think, for a guy like Alfred Morris. And if they can get on their blocks, get to the second level, which is what this offensive line is designed to do. I know Alfred's chomping at the bit to kind of, regain some of his status on this team and in this offense.
Let's talk about the Redskins defense. What do they have to do to really rise to the occasion? And I'm sorry, I look at this Atlanta team. I mean, even without Julio Jones and Roddy White having a down year, they still have got Gonzalez. Matt Ryan, was viewed as one of the elite quarterbacks last year. His game couldn't have gone that far south that quick. How does the Redskins defense, and Steven Jackson, to me, didn't have a bad game last week against Green Bay, played pretty well. He's actually healthy. And so, to me, the Redskins defense has to stop him first.
Yeah, and that's always their emphasis. And they've struggled at times tackling Stephen Davis. He's a big, thick-bodied, upper-body kind of running back. So they have to make sure that they gang tackle, that they chop him down, if you will, get more hats on him, because they have not been successful, Larry, when he was in St. Louis, going waist up on Steven Jackson. So that's number one. The other big thing, you know what? Go after their offensive line. This is not a good offensive line because of injury, because of free agent defections. We saw Jeremy Trueblood at training camp in Richmond. Look, quite honestly, he wasn't very good then. I don't know if he's that much better now. That is an area Ryan Kerrigan, Brian Arakpo, and I expect has to kind of, again, empty the kitchen sink a little bit. A lot of inside linebacker twists and stunts and all of that kind of stuff, especially on third down.
All right, I want to thank Chris Russell from ESPN 980. Outstanding analysis on today's game. And I want to thank you for watching Redskins.com and checking out Gametime Live, presented by Verizon. I'm Larry Michael. Kickoff 1 o'clock, the Redskins and Falcons. Thanks for watching.